Ben started taking drugs at the age of 12. He was big for his age and finding school difficult, so he used to hang out with the older kids in the park near his home.
I got the opportunity to sort of start hanging around with them, and of course they're all doing stuff like, teenagers do, smoking cannabis and drinking and stuff like that. In order for me to fit in, I started doing what they were doing, which was using drugs and drinking. But because my mum's an alcoholic, I decided that I didn't want to drink because I didn't want to be like her. So I literally was walking on my way home one day from the park, really stoned, and I was like, yeah, that was really cool. I'm just going to do that instead of drink.
From becoming a user, he was soon supplying his friends with cannabis, and by the age of 15, he was arrested along with some of his older friends.
It's not really that funny, but I find it quite amusing that I'd sold the drugs to everyone else in the car when we got arrested, and my mum had to pick me up from the police station. She's going mental at all of these people that are older than me, going, look what you made my boy do, and I'm there like, actually, I was the one that sold it to them.
It was soon after that he left home. His mother was getting divorced, and the atmosphere at home was toxic. He ended up in a hostel for homeless young people, and it was there that he became addicted to heroin. He got the odd job and money of his family to fund his addiction. By the time he was 20, he had the opportunity to sell it.
The person I was selling it for had been doing it for a while, and it was really, really serious. It's probably not appropriate for me to talk about the sums of money involved, but they're vast, vast sums. Way more than you might imagine, actually. That addiction was probably costing me anywhere between £1,000 to £1,500 a week. And I was able to fund that from the selling of it. And again, it was to people I knew, because all these people I used to do the raves and stuff with, because you always gravitate to sort of like-minded people, most of those people actually became addicts themselves.
This led to his arrest, and at the age of 21, he went to prison for 3 years. Once out of prison, he found himself gravitating to the same friendship groups and started using again. He also became involved with a woman who he later married, but unknown to her, he hid his addiction the whole time they were together. During this time, Ben would regularly visit a mate's house who he knew was involved in drug dealing. It was there that he became aware of a county line situation.
The guys that were running that line had forced this lad from over near London. Somehow he got into about £2,500 worth of debt with these guys. So they forced him to come to Wokingham. He wasn't allowed any, the only phone that he had to use was, didn't have any of his family numbers or whatever on. He wasn't in contact with his mum. They didn't pay him for being there. And there is actually, believe it or not, a standard procedure for the way it works normally, in my experience anyway, where the person that's doing the actual running of the drugs gets paid 10%, whereas this guy wasn't getting paid anything. He was lucky if he was, I think he had to phone up and ask permission if he could have 10 or 20 quid, and they'd let him do that sort of every 2 or 3 days. And I was like, you're crazy. I was like, how long have you been doing this for? He said, oh, I've been doing it now for about 3 or 4 months. And I was like, yeah, and you're giving them like upwards of £1,000 sometimes in a day. But they were forcing him to do it. It wasn't. His mum reported him missing, and the police actually showed up to the flat at one point to see if they could find him. He wasn't there. And in the end, he ran off. He went home, basically. I don't ever know what happened to him. So they needed someone to do it for them, and where I was sort of relatively experienced, I ended up doing it for them. But of course, I don't owe these guys anything. But I'm not going to lie, I didn't like most of the people I was involved with at this point. Like some of the other people I've been involved with, I actually quite like, get on right with them. These guys were not the sort of people that I would want to be involved with. You're seen as an asset, an expendable asset,
Eventually, Ben decided to get away from everything, including his marriage.
It was because I got so bad on the drugs, and everything had been building up where I've been hiding stuff for all those years, that it was just easier to not face that. I thought that was the easier option, was to not face up to anything that I'd done. So I ended up making some really, really poor decisions, owing people money that you do not want to owe money to, and the easier option for me again was to run away. In my mind, I ended up being homeless for 4 years in Reading.
That time of homelessness turned out to be the turning point in Ben's life.
I think I needed that to realise just how broken I was, and that's the point where you have to. That's the point where you have to reach in order for you to get off the drugs. You have to realise absolutely just how crazy what you're doing is, how broken you are, and how you need help.
His gran agreed to pay for his rehab.
If I'm being completely honest, I started off agreeing that I was going to go to rehab simply as a way of getting money out of her, because she agreed to fund my habit whilst I was trying to find a rehab. So I was making a real half-hearted effort of finding a rehab just because I could get some money out of her.
Although initially half-hearted, after a while Ben realised this was the only option if he was going to survive.
I sort of stood there surrounded by dirty needles at my grand's house with this syringe full of this stuff that would, literally half of this thing would have killed anyone I know, and I'm there, I'm doing twice as much of that, and if I'm not dead from that in a minute, I'll do another one in 10-20 minutes time. And it just dawned on me that what I was doing was killing myself very, very quickly, because I was doing so much, it would only take that stuff to not be mixed particularly well, and there'd be a slightly stronger bit in one of those than you were expecting, or the stuff you get is stronger than what you used to, and it would have been game over so easily.
So Ben went for the interview. It was a Christian rehab centre, and through the love and care he received there, he developed a faith in God and started to make positive choices for his future. Ben is aware of the pain he has caused and is grateful for the opportunities rehab has given him to make amends and give back.
It's really easy for me to forget that my family have really suffered with my addiction, even though I've not, broken into houses or their houses or stolen from them or whatever. You've still stolen time from them because they spend a lot of time worrying about you.
He now works with local charities and speaks at support groups.
So, so what I try to do is I just try to explain why I did what their husband or son is doing and what was going through my head, in the hope that they'll be able to recognise what's gone on for their partner or child. Because like I say, I'm not professionally trained in it, otherwise I might be able to sort of identify it slightly differently, but I'd do more if I could. It comes down to sort of feeling like you're worth something.